Carmen Martinez. I'm a second year major student. First of all, I would like to thank you all for staying on to the end. And then,
our pleasure.
And then I would like to thank Pancho Vierno to come here. He's receiving of the Fortebat visiting scholar and fellows from the Rockefeller Center, and he's doing his research now in North American and international financing institutions and the cultural constructions of villas miserias. That is what I'm going to today about. So, this research thesis aims to investigate the question of how the necessity of growth in villas miseria can be planned, enforcing its vertical component, treating the issue of housing as a territorial and urban problem will be the element that establishes the rules of these new patterns of growth. Thus, the actual concept of planning is equal to zoning, that is plan, and urban code, that can be plan and sections, change into a more flexible and holistic one, where planning is redefined as a volumetric code whose units of measure is cubic meters. So, first of all, in the context of Buenos Aires, it's really important to study the huge immigrant flows that happen first through Europe and then through South America. So then, you can see this is the rate of no-native population in Argentina, and how during the years it changed into a more European one, into like a more external kind of immigration, into a more internal one. Even Le Corbusier, in 1933, he was comparing Buenos Aires with New York. So from a town city that Buenos Aires was before, in the end it was like in the all global context. So, in order to explain this national migration, it's really important to think about first of perspective of urban populations and the density of how it's changing, and also the migration corridors that happen through time. And of course, the geographic component of villas of Buenos Aires, where everything is completely flat. And even Amancio Williams in 1945, he was limited Buenos Aires, the city, in between two endless places like the river and Pampa. This is the growth of population, the total population in Buenos Aires. And here, in those parts, you can read, I think, conventillos and villas miserias. In the end, is the total immigration that happened in Buenos Aires. So on the one hand, in the population, you have the total growth, and in the other hand, there is just the immigration. First of all, it's really important to know what is conventillos and what is villas miserias as two types of housing. Conventillos, that is this, is a type of dwelling around a courtyard where social encounters took place. They were in the middle of the urban fabrics, and at the beginning they were pieces of lands, parcel subdivisions that they rent by the Italians and create this type of house. They were a kind of like rooms that surrounds a courtyard, that the rooms were 4 meters per 4 meters per 4 meters. And inside of each room, at the beginning they were just one family, and in the end they were even 4 families, where all the common services, water, toilets, they were situated just in the middle of this square for the whole city, for the whole community. So something that happened is that because those rooms were rented, it was a crash in 1997 because of the rise of the rent, and a lot of people started to migrate to other kinds of land and to other kinds of sectors that they were not in the middle of the cities. And those were villas miseria. Villas miseria. Villas miseria can be considered defined fragments inside of the city. At the beginning they were the most part of them in the peripheries, but because Buenos Aires grew a lot, they were in the like fragments. So you can see how they are, in this example, how they are more or less in the middle of the city, how they are growing. They have like 1, 2, 3, even 5 stories high, and they are always in continuous construction. So as a process of the increase of villas interiors population, first it's really important to understand that the first measure or the first way that villas miseria appeared was by standards provided by governments, advised by the government in order to respond to the huge migrations that happened there. Later on, they only allow materials. They only put materials for the immigrants, and they just let them like the land, and they have to settle wherever they want. So, as an example, I have just one villa miseria here, just in order to compare the different types. And I put these parcel subdivisions. They are the parcel subdivisions appeared just a couple of years ago because villas miserias right now they are so old that the most part of the people now own the land, and this is like a new paradigm that is happening. So as a way to start the socio-political implications that happen in Buenos Aires and how it grows, I made these maps of growth and Thesis, how the city is going to be out of the limits of the city, and they start to appear the first commentators that they are always kind of in the middle of the city, how they are changing and growing in population. And how in 1933 start to appear villas miserias because of the what I saw before, the strikes and other things. 1966, how now commentators are starting more or less to disappear or lose importance until today. So as a way to understand how villas miserias were settled, it is really important to understand the watersheds. And in a way, the land value. So as a way to continue this study, I focus in this villa miseria, because as you saw during this process, is the one that was always there, is like the one that has the most population, and somehow is the most resilient. So, talking like in the urban context, this is the part of the land that has the more value. This is the main center of Buenos Aires, where you have here the business center, the city, and the main subways and communication systems, not only to connect them through the rest of the city, but only to the rest of the country. This is the one. So here like you can see how it's surrounded by industry, the main facilities, like the Corpus Indian. And going here, the other paradigm is like this Villa 31 here is surrounded by barriers. So if you are here, or if you are here, you're not going to see it. It's completely high. You have here these huge barriers of the railway, the industry, and the main interchange communication here. So this is Villa Miseria. This is a picture taken from this highway, and how now the buildings are higher than the highway itself, and I was like, no, to stop. So first of all, it's really, I made this study talking about the population of Villa 31, how here, because of eradication politics that they had in Buenos Aires, because after time, it was about to disappear, but now how now is And this is an analysis that I made of the FAR in order to understand how this fragment of the city is growing. So this is like evolution. You start to see here that the expansion is not being only horizontally but also vertically, where different years are overlapping. How now appears the highway. Next one. And the last one. That is what is happening to it. So, as a way to approach this problem of villa miseria, I have chosen 3 main case studies to see. The first one is un techo para mi país. For me, it's like housing as a global approach. It's something that they are doing now. What's happening if we have a standard that more or less can fulfill the needs of not only Argentina, Cordoba, and even South America, but what about the global context? The second one is Barrio de Maravilla Housing Project of Álvaro Ciudad as an infrastructural organizer. What is really interesting, because Villa Miseria they don't have any infrastructure, is that this spine, that is the infrastructure, the basic services, in a way organize the growth of the development of the neighborhood with some basic kind of housing that more or less like they are planning. So the infrastructure. And the last one is just a proposal. Is one house, one tree for the Plan Mafia of Le Corbusier in 1937. That this is, I call it housing as a planning tool, how like a really basic house that in the end there is like 3 walls and a tree can organize a series of codes that they create neighborhood, a different neighborhood with squares, kind of boulevards or streets with different hierarchy. And this is one example that I did. I mean, this is not real, I did it. In order to explain how all the urban codes would work. So, what happens if we apply these rules into villas miseria, into this 3-dimensional approach, where we can have some standards that they don't not grow just horizontally, just putting one after the other, but what happens if we, more than that, we can also connect them vertically? What happens if this organizer of this infrastructure organizer can also not be only in plan but just vertically, and how this type and this kind of urban codes that Le Corbusier thought about would work also in 3 dimensions. So, the rethinking of villas miseria as a 3-dimensional realm enforces the idea of creating elements that will operate as a volumetric system. Therefore, it will be possible to talk about cubic meters of open space, cubic meters of facilities, or cubic meters of social programs that will respond to the vertical and endless increments of density in villas miseria. Thank you very much.
So, to clarify, so the older the conventillos were kind of more traditional style urban housing that were pushed out or demolished over time?
They were vacant land that Italians rent for 20 years, 30 years, in order to provide all the, and they construct these conventillos types that they were just rooms around the courtyard.
Okay.
So what happened in the end is because the rent of conventillos, of those rooms, people who not allowed anymore to live there, and they moved to Villas Miseria. Right now, there is more people in Villas Miseria than in Conventillos. Like, this was how the immigrant type of housing evolved, in a way.
And the origin of the Villas Miseria was originally a state-initiated thing. You were saying that the government provided land.
Yes.
And materials, and the materials were. It was a process. At the beginning, it was a kind of communist approach. Like, we have this free land, and we government allow you to settle there. At the beginning, government allowed them with standards of housing. Then, just with the materials, there is one really famous villa in Syria that is made by Chico and already exists. Well, until last year, I think that it won. Yeah, and then they just provide them the land, and these auto constructions start happening.
So when you said standards, what do you mean by standards?
Standards of housing, I mean that they are like pre-constructions, like constructions made by the government, like this typical.
Oh, so they're the actual material.
Yeah, like typical houses, almost like imagine not tents, but kind of, that they were one after the other. In order to allow them to live there.
Oh, so it actually started with a. Wow. Is there a grid? How?
It was not even a grid. They were like, of course, I mean, they were one after the other. But they, for example, they have no infrastructure.
Is it called Villa Miseria from the beginning? Does that mean like misery?
Yes. Yes. At the beginning, actually, the first one was called Villa Esperanza, that is Villa of Hope.
It's interesting though. I mean, if originally the government provided, shoebox or whatever it was, and now it's just like crazy chaos. What's to say that your Corbusian plan wouldn't also evolve to chaos?
It's a great question that I really have, and I would like to resolve it.
So, firstly, I think it's a really well presented proposal for a thesis, and the story is well told. The research on, can I just ask how you knew the step-by-step process of what is essentially the informal settlement? How did you know that?
Well, the ones from this whole city.
No, the ones where you stacked up this one.
I found that research from the Buenos Aires University, because right now they are having a lot of social workshops, and I found the plans.
So they actually mapped out over time the growth of this particular city.
And actually, because right now all the people own the land, they are starting to draw the parcels in order to legalize them.
I mean,
actually, those people are paying taxes, but they do not have any infrastructure. For example, they have them, but they are not legal. So this is the tricky thing.
So they're paying taxes, but they're stealing electricity or something like that?
Yes. Because government did not, I don't know, they did not provide them.
It would be interesting to find out, Christina's question, or I can't remember, the question about what's to say it would devolve, and that seems also like a historical question, which you're interested in, because you showed, and I'm actually now wondering why you're interested in that original Italian immigrant typology. Why are you showing it to us? Is it because there's something about that is important for you? Or is it just to show historical precedents, or what? Because right now, it seems like I don't really know. It would be good to review in your mind why you're showing us that. And if that can provide some clues as to whether that was more stable, maybe that can help.
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned, it was like the first or the second slide, you showed a historical photograph, and you said that the courtyard served a social purpose, that it was a gathering place. I can't remember exactly how you said it, but and it seems like, of course, that typology lends itself to a certain sociability that was then like a thread that was lost, it seemed like. But it could be interesting when you're talking about, figuring out cubic meters of public space. And I mean, I wonder if there is, either you end up losing the, I can't remember what they're called, no, it speaks Spanish, comitios, or there's something there that can inform, the way that you proceed.
Yeah.
But then actually, instead of those 3 foreign intruders as typologies, you have something really local. That's like even a 4th way of organizing this. You know what I mean? Because you have those 3 projects that seem like really interesting, but they seem a little bit arbitrary right now because not totally arbitrary because you obviously thought out what you're interested in,
in this
but that brings out something very clearly site-specific or relevant.
No,
Why did you pick those 3? Just out of curiosity.
because I am really interested, first of all, and a kind of house, like a housing, that maybe could be represented or reproduced, like in different informal settlements, for example. The second one is because villas miserias, they don't have infrastructure, and why don't the fact of introducing infrastructure could be the main organizer? Because in the end, it's kind of difficult in these places that people have lived there for many years, they are like second generations, to just erase everything and create something new. So maybe as a way to negotiate with them, like this infrastructure I'm going to provide you, but it's going to be in a certain way in order to organize this new neighborhood. So this is the second reason, the second project. And the last one is about this idea of how without a lot of means, like the most simple means, like 3 walls and a tree, whatever is on my proposal, I don't know yet, can organize and create streets, squares, I don't know, maybe a school, whatever.
Do you think as you develop that you'll begin to sort of merge them into a single concept, or do you expect that you'll have these kind of...
No. I'm expecting to mix all of them in one proposal to get something like really vertical idea.
Do people own, do you know about like ownership, right? Like do people own air rights about where they just, it would be really interesting to know how land ownership gets, like do they own just above, like someone else gets to own the one on top, or?
It's something that I'm looking forward to.
The other really big question I have though is I mean it's a very bold move to say that you're going to do it on the site because it requires total clearance. So I guess I'm wondering, you can use this as a way, let's say, to investigate the way that the existing condition works, but I'm not convinced that it has to be here.
Are you suggesting that whatever you propose means that they have to clear what's there right now?
But if she thought that, it's really interesting for me. I'd like to reframe.
So, I mean, it's important to, and I'm sure you know this, but to note that the work that you're trying to do is like part of a very kind of a long trajectory of thinking about how informal settlements start, how they grow, how they become in a way institutionalized, solidified, and this kind of interestingly somewhat like the previous presentation, so then becomes permanent in a way, and then how things like land rights, ownership rights get either just taken, like grasped, or given, like these negotiations between
But actually, there is a law in Buenos Aires, correct me if I'm wrong, but after 25 years of settling in the same place, you own the land.
So a specific kind of property rights law that enables this kind of thing to happen. And it would be good historically important work that like Turner, you know, John Turner
Yes.
did in Peru, like just if, okay, you, a kind of quick, easy example of what happened there to give a breath to some of the work that you're doing. So Turner, there's a sites and services project in India that's like really famous.
Yeah, in Barinya?
Aranya. Aranya. So just to like understand that like what you want to build on what some of these examples offer you, but you also kind of have to make it better because like clearly there are issues, there are problems with the way that some of these things have been implemented. And I think I would say that some of the problems is like in a sense an over optimistic view of self-help. Like, and I think we're starting to realize it, like thinking that, oh, look at what poor people have done before, they'll do it again. We just need to make it a little better. But that kind of view, in a way, ignores some of the economic and political realities. How do you bring back some of the political urgency of the project? And I think the way that you framed it definitely allows you to do that. Some perhaps re-engage with this idea of an immigrant city, for instance, and how this plan presupposes a kind of continued growth of an immigrant city. Maybe it's not Italians anymore, maybe that shifts to something else, some other kinds of groups of immigrants, but you could make it continually critical of the kinds of processes that are happening and how do you and make it even add to the arc of this kind of work.
I think there's a few different questions there that you'll need to figure out. Like, do you want this as sort of an ideal model, you know, in a case where something's starting fresh, or is it, as some people said, you know, something where you should be paying attention to how you can kind of introduce this into an existing place without being overly disruptive, or you know, is it supposed to be a self-help project? Because actually, this is more utopian than self-help, I would say.
I agree.
And so you'll have to kind of, I think you'll want to justify that though to your audience, because I think we're all a little predisposed to be skeptical of kind of anything that starts from scratch, because it, you know, becomes a lot of other issues start to come into play. So you'll want to sort of position yourself. I mean, it's totally fine if you want to make it utopian, but that does raise issues that make it also potentially more problematic than if it was sort of an incision or a modification.
What I'm really working on now in these next steps is about putting some political and economic argument on the side, because the campaign is really, really important. But I did not bring, because in the end, I'm not really sure what is going on yet, so just about how to implement this infrastructure, or what's going on with their services and the land, the use of the land, like going more like into place in order to know exactly how it works, and all the questions that you are having, like somehow like I'm having them too, because I have before like almost I have no idea about this area, so.
And then also how much you are trying to engage with the physical material design issues. Goes back to maybe the question of how, I guess, based on your answer, you envision this to be something that actually, in a way, overlays onto an existing development, because you're not planning on clearing this out.
No, I don't know if I don't know exactly if I'm cleaning completely to clearance.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be like a process,
Okay.
like a progressive way of clearance, or just like, I don't know, put one things for others, or I don't know, like,
So then,
or just directly like put another thing on the top. I don't know.
So then some of these physical, materiality, structural issues will come up, and depending on where you take the project, some of those this, whether, you know, if you're thinking of like, you're invoking this history of like minimal standards, like this kind of obvious minimum type thing. You know, how that impacts the ideas of standardization and materiality. Again, these are not new issues, but I think if you really try to elaborate on what you're trying to do as a three-dimensional aspect, you could try to unearth some new kind of research around this. You know, it's also you could look at Teddy Cruz again, when he's trying to come up with a system of enabling people to do some of these flexible build scenarios using a small toolkit of parts.
It's easy. I mean, now that I understand that you're not going to clear it, which is like good. But there, you could. I mean, I could imagine your next step if you, like, you made mention of this fact that, you know, if you're on the land for 25 years, then it becomes sort of grandfathered and you own it. Like, if you did a little survey to figure out, okay, then what are the pieces of land that are not owned right now because they haven't been owned for 25 years, and so then, I mean, it's almost like, you know, so that could be one criteria. Okay, so like pull out everything that's not land. Like, okay, then what does that mean? Or you could use your, you know, your sectional or your sort of, you know, cumulative diagram, and you could say, okay, I'm going to make the decision, like, not enough, you know, construction money has gone into the buildings that are only 2 stories or below, and so I'm going to pull those in. Like, I could imagine a host of different scenarios that you play out to figure out if you're going to actually intervene in an existing space. Like, how would you do that in a kind of almost like rational and like somewhat humane way? You know, that has to do with like land ownership and politics and economics, and you know, it would be, I think, a complicated mix of criteria, but it could be pretty interesting.
Shall I? I think that probably the biggest issue we have there, it has to do with the land value, because the Villa 31 is located in one of the most expensive sites in the city of Buenos Aires. So all around, in front of the Villa 31 is Recoleta, which is one of the chic neighborhood par excellence in Buenos Aires. And then you have there Palermo Chico, which is also a very chic neighborhood. You have to the south Puerto Madero, and the center of the city, itself. So there is a natural pressure on this site. So it's probably one of the most expensive pieces of land in Argentina. So the problem is, how do you think to deal with this? Because if you, how do you think to deal with the question of natural gentrification of this place?
Yeah.
It will be, if you make some things, if this place is transformed in a very nice part of the city, which is what we all want to happen for these people will be exported to the peripheries, because these are pretty poor people, so they will sell the property, and this will be gentrified. So, for me, the question is, how do you think to transport the integration that already exists? Because the children from the Villa Miseria, they go to the other part, cross the railroad, etc., and they go to the schools in the rest of the city. And their relatives, they work in the city. So in this part, in the surroundings of one of the biggest railway station, which is Retiro. It's a very mixed, naturally mixed part of the city. So how do you think to introduce or to treat this question of mixing socially and mixing economically and mixing in every sense into that? Because otherwise it will, in my opinion, this will be, in 20 years, these people will not be anymore there, and the other chic, cool population of Buenos Aires will be living there. So, and we will be starting again, but in other places. So, this is for me one big question for this project. How do you think to deal with it? It will be very difficult. As I told you, we did with a team of students work on following or trying to give an answer to this big problem. And I think it's possible, but it's really difficult. And it will be very interesting if you think this and if you think how to build this bridge and how to transform this in really a part of the city with all the meanings that has this that are related to this idea. And in thinking and insisting this, thinking that you will be developing this project in one of the most expensive pieces of land in Argentina. So it's how this is really problematic. And as an observation, property, you have the property, but if you pay the rights and the taxes, if you don't pay the taxes, you don't have. I mean, you have to demonstrate that you are there, you were there for, I think it's 25 or 30 years. But by showing your payment for the taxes of this site. So it's not so easy, and it's very complicated the question of property also.
Because I had the...
But anyway,
like
this is not the main problem.
Like I have the census, like the data from Milan's area, and they say that the 85% of the people, they own the land. I don't know if this is true. I mean, I don't know if it is true or not, but it's what the data says.
Because this site is so important in the city. There are many interests around, surrounding and dealing with it. So politically, economically, etc., etc., etc. But anyway, I think you will be making an exercise in a very limited period of time. So there are things that you should by sure, cut as a problem. Yeah. So you can make hypotheses and then depart with your ideas, for instance, the question of property. Mm-hmm. But in reality, it's very, very complex. Because they are some part of the Villa 31, and there is the Villa 31 bis on the other side, and it's expanding, and nobody knows exactly what happened with the vertical property there. There is a law in Argentina about the vertical property, but in those cases it's more complicated. So it is not the they are probably it's an exceptional case because it's in this particular place. It's not a slum, a characteristic shanty town in the surrounding of city with more or less know how it develops. This is something different. Nobody knows exactly what is happening with property and with the rent there and with many interests. I don't know who lives, and it's very complicated. So you should simplify this arbitrarily, in my view, and fix something not in an arbitrary way, and then develop. I am not against the idea, and I'm not against the proposal, but I think you.
Yeah,
it's
no, I agree.
important to focus.
One point. One thing that might be interesting to do is to try to explore what the Argentinian state or the city government in this case, is predisposed to do or tends to want to do.
Yeah.
Like what is their development plan? What is their attitude to economic development or to social welfare? Because I can think of, like, even just examples of, like, this woman who presented a paper on Mumbai recently, and she's claiming that Dharavi, you know, that some of the same issues have become very high price land. It is not a slum per se, it's got a lot of coherence, but she claims that the reason they cannot get any large-scale plans done is because the Mumbai government at the lower level is so messy and kind of in a way messed up that it results in an incapability to undertake large-scale development, and it helps some of these more small-scale stuff.
Well, in this case, the property of those lands were property of the national government. You know, Buenos Aires is the federal city. So since 15 years ago, Buenos Aires was part of the, was a property of the national state. But it was, it got independence 15 years ago, so it had its own government and its own properties, etc. The independence of the city. But this is a site in litigation. So there are some obligations that come or that involve the local government, and some others the national government. For instance, the police, or I don't know. There are many things that many conflicts, because nowadays, in political terms, the national government is absolutely the opposite side in politics and with regard to the local government. I think more than that, probably the candidate will come from the city of Buenos Aires in the future elections for presidency. So it's a very electric, intense, and energetic point of in the city. So this is why it's so interesting to deal with.